this weekend in Birmingham, another magnificent 7-card put together by Frank Warren and Queensberry. The main event, Nathan Heaney against Brad Pauls, 2 for the British middleweight title. Nathan Heaney undefeated, of course. These two had a thrilling first fight, potential fight of the year contender. Heaney's such a big draw, hugely supported in Stoke, still desperate to have a big fight at the Stoke City football ground. Could a win for him here set up a big fight for him before he retires? He's arguably, Barry, one of the most popular fighters in Britain right now.
Yeah, no, he most definitely is. And ironically, if he can get the win over Brad Pauls, he could box for the European title against a British and European title fight against the two most unlikely fighters to be competing against each other, against Tyler Denny. 2 guys who no one gave a chance of getting to where they've become. It would be, and that's the beauty of boxing. It really is. They have ability, but they've beaten guys who have more natural ability than them. But it just shows that it's all about application, dedication. Those things are more important. Believing in yourself and all taking the risks that they had to take to get to where they are. Certainly Tyler Denny, because he hasn't got the following that Nathan Heaney has. But they're 2 guys who've just got better. They've learned from every fight they've had. They've learned from, and they're at the stage now where you're going, you're not only a British champion, oh, well done. Actually, you're a deserved British champion. You're a deserved European champion. You're there because you are clearly the best. You've beaten the guys to get there. You haven't had a lucky break. You've had to do it the hard way. Nathan Heaney, who, let's be honest, never looked like he was going. He looked like a ticket seller who was going to get exploited at some point. That was the truth. I love it.
Absolutely feel the same. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. At some point, unfortunately, he was going to step up a level and be found wanting because however many tickets you sell, they can't win the fight for you.
And yet, every time Denzel Bentley and others, every time he was magnificent.
Even against Brad Pauls, I thought he just nicked it, but it was close.
I agree.
And I didn't argue with the draw, and I wouldn't have argued with Pauls would have got it, by the way, because he was fantastic that night. He had to deal with it, being the B-side against the one who sells loads of tickets. And when you're not used to that, you can suffocate. You can go into your shell and be a bit timid in a hostile environment. And he showed up, but Heaney showed that he could dig deep in a fight where he was favourite for the first time in a long time. All of a sudden, and so I think he can perform better. I think Pauls will be better in this fight actually, but I think Heaney will match him. I think Heaney will get the win this time and move on to hopefully him and Tyler Denny for the British and European title. Would be just unbelievable. What a boxing story that would be.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, just to go back over it, I mean, I bumped into Nathan, by the way, at the Boxing Border Control lunch, which is the day after the Sunday afternoon lunch after that fight with Brad Pauls. And, he's such an amicable fellow. And he explaining how he drives 1,300 miles in the area, dropping off tickets to all his fans. He's so puppyish about things. He's really grown as well into the role of a guy who is the British middleweight champion. His confidence levels are extraordinary. I remember him a couple of years back, and we were doing a broadcast in lockdown. It was one of the first broadcasts we did in lockdown when he came out to Delilah in Telford. And we were allowed a 500 crowd that night, I think. We did a live broadcast of talkSPORT. Tommy Fury was on the card. In about his second or third fight, and 500 people that night because they'd been allowed out. Sounded like 50,000 to be honest. And Nathan joined us afterwards, and he's got such an extraordinary story, and that he's been a teacher, that he's doing a lot of this for his father, his departed father. It means so much to him. And again, like you say, when you mention Tyler Denny, a guy who's holding it together as a plumber, not having full training camps up until 2 or 3 fights ago, maybe even until 2 fights ago, and now fighting on one of the biggest cards you've ever seen in the UK against Hamza Shiraz at Wembley Stadium on September the 21st. And like you say, I'm not sure the European title is on the line, is it, against Hamza Shiraz? I don't know yet. It probably is. It should be, yeah. But it ought to be. But Nathan Heaney could end up fighting Hamza Shiraz as well, by the way. There's so many possibilities right now.
But you know what? You can't, Heaney, he's a lovely guy, as is Tyler Denny, 2 of the loveliest guys to speak to. And Heaney sells tickets the old-fashioned way, like we all had to. We had to go to pubs and barbers, not hairdressers. They were all called barbers back then, and and post offices, and leave posters and leave tickets with them on posters, and hope they would sell them. And if they wouldn't, you'd have to go back and say thank you, and even if they give you all the tickets back, thank you. And then in the end, that's what I used to do. I think they used to buy a ticket and not go. Just because I was polite and nice, and that's you had to do it by it was foot traffic. You had to walk everywhere, say thank you, put tickets and posters in all sorts of places, and hope. Can you do that? Oh, thank you very much, appreciate that. And that's how you build it. Josh Warren is a prime example of that. So everyone who comes to watch you fight in the early days, they know you, whether it's been a brief encounter or they're your friends. It grows then because they bring someone else, and then before you know it, then you're selling thousands of tickets, or for me, it was like 2,000 tickets or whatever, and you don't know them all, but it starts with a core of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Before you know it, then the whole pub's coming to watch you fight, and then they're bringing all their friends. It goes quick. This is before, now people just think social media is going to sell you tickets. The way Heaney does it, Josh Warren do it, the way they do it, that's the formula. Because people want you to win. People know you. Once they have a personal connection with you, they're invested, and that's it. And what Heaney's done, and you see the ring walk, the way he's singing the song, and he's talking to his friends. That's what he's doing. He's getting involved with them. Because, by the way, when I used to fight, all my mates had the best night ever on my nights out when I boxed. I never had a good night. I'm fighting. It's horrible for me. I'm nervous and doing all the stuff. I'm preparing for a fight. They're all drinking, having a great time. They talk about my fights with more joy than I do. Because they had the best night of their life. They were going staying in a hotel around the country and doing mad things. And I'm doing none of this. But and that's what Heaney involves himself with them. So they feel part of it. So then every punch he throws, every punch he blocks, every punch he takes, they're with him. And they're invested in him. And he's brilliant at it. And because he's such a likable guy, it just multiplies very quickly. But he has the ability. He can't dine out on that anymore. No, as Tyler Den, they can't dine out on that. Well, I just rolling the dice and keeping it going. You've been found out now. You're a good fighter now. You're good. So people know it now. The secret's out. So you have to perform. Now all of a sudden you're a favourite again against Brad Pauls, I would still think. So you have to go out and you have to perform properly.
I think if you get the British and European title on the line, and I think anyone facing Nathan Heaney would be crazy not to go and fight him at Stoke at the football ground, because the atmosphere there would just be incredible. Like I said, 500 of his fans in lockdown or the end of lockdown create an incredible atmosphere. I never thought I'd hear you talking about the barbers today, by the way, because I don't want to talk about bald men fighting over a comb. Because but it's very interesting you say that. Like the old.
Well, shoot to Turkey, couldn't I get my hair done? But I'm not going to do that. But then I look back at those moments fondly, and as will Nathan Heaney. But listen, he's got a hard fight against Brad Pauls. It's a difficult night for him, so he has to be on point. But I think he might just get over the line, but it's going to be a really hard, grueling 12-rounder.
Also, on that card, we've got Chantel Cameron making her debut for Queensberry. I'm very disappointed for her that she didn't get the trilogy fight immediately against Katie Taylor, after she beat Katie Taylor, then lost to Katie Taylor. And then Eddie Hearn has moved Katie Taylor. Well, they were looking for the big Amanda Serrano fight, weren't they? That's what changed it on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson undercard, which is why I mentioned that, because we would have had that fight this weekend as well. In the United States. Obviously, that fight, I imagine, between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano now commuted to November. So Chantel Cameron's gone different ways. She changed her training team recently. She's gone with Grant Smith in Sheffield. I think he's a terrific trainer. He's got a great stable there. There's a lot of very happy fighters there. She's up against it's the WBC women's interim light welterweight title, 140 pounds, against Ellen Macaled, who's only got 2 losses on her record, but they're at super featherweight, I think. The French woman, against Alicia Baumgardner and Delphine Passoon. Now, you know as well as I do those are two very tough, hard fighters, but she went the distance with them. So Chantal is a very bustling, compact, tank-like fighter, and up at 140 pounds, she might just be a little bit too tough for LM, a bit too tensile strength, kind of in the wrong areas for LM. I think she might get a stoppage here, you know.
Yeah, I don't see the stoppage, to be honest, but I do see a dominant. I think the jab of Cameron. I think that's the job. That's what does it. That does the job for her. I think it's a real. She steps behind. It's a really heavy shot, and the 1-2s. I don't. With the 2-minute rounds, you haven't got long to. If you do hurt them to get the finish, that's the problem. It's easier to survive for those 2 minutes for the fighter who's hurt, and I just think that she'll struggle for that. But I think it's potentially a 10-round shutout. And I think she hurts it quite a few times, but just doesn't get enough to get the stoppage. But I think it's a relatively comfortable fight for Chantal Cameron, who has loads of options at different weights. Let's be honest, and she does.
She does.
We're pretty much the welter. We got the pretty much the reign on the welterweight division in women's boxing as well. Let's not forget that. And and there's fighters around at lightweight who can move up, to super lightweight to challenge her for her title if she gets to win on Saturday.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Chantal Cameron, because like people like Nathan Heaney, Chantal never sang her own praises enough when she was coming through, and she's a very formidable fighter. I think she belongs in the top 10 pound for pound in the world in women's boxing. She's achieved so much. The victory against Katie Taylor was phenomenal. They were both very close fights. I scored the first one a draw, actually, and I remember talking to her about it. She was unhappy about it, but maybe that's what's wrong with the scoring in 2-minute rounds. I think she's still got a fantastic future, and like you say, there's loads of great matchups for her there as well, Barry. Also on the card, Ezra Taylor, the coming light heavyweight, Solomon Dakers fighting the young heavyweight, Liam Davis against Shabazz Massoud. It looks a good one on there as well, Barry.
Yeah, it does. I'd say it was a really good fight on there, and people won't remember it. Is Zach Park versus Jack Armfield.
Yes.
Now, Armfield's been pretty inactive, and Zach Park is a real talent, and people talk, no, he was in line to box Canelo at one point in his career, but he's a guy who coasts too often, Zach Parker, and against Jack Armfield, who he should get the win. But it'll be a difficult night for him.
It will. It'll be a good fight. Both long, both rangy.
Yeah.
Both like to let their hands go. Both want to excite the crowd. I agree with you.
Yeah. I think Zach Parker sometimes can just be a little bit too want to look too pretty at times rather than just be busier. And so he's a real talent who sometimes underperforms. And if he underperforms on Saturday, he might come unstuck. I think he'll win, but I think I think he's got to be a bit more professional in his approach. But it's a good fight.